Thank you for having me. I'm truly humbled to even be up here. And who's excited to speak about data? Normally when I ask that question, that would only be G that responds to something like that because he's a software engineer. So who's actually excited about making money? Okay, so you've nailed the listing, and it's not selling. I'm going to show you the process that our group goes through to actually get the price reduction and get you a paycheck and help you serve the family. So the 24-hour listing agent is coming to an end. For many of us across the country, as we all know, the market's starting to shift. It may not have shifted where you're at, but I'll share with you the story of how we used to be able to do it. 2-3 years ago, you would get a listing signed, you'd smile, already count your commission check, and you would go, I'm going to stick this in the ground, I'm going to go back to the office, and by the morning, I'm going to have 3 or 4 multiple offers. It's changing. It's changing where we're at. And just so you know, I'm based out of New Jersey. I'm based out of technically Ocean City. I serve the Jersey Shore. And it's changing in our market. We're still probably one of the last markets that's still considered a seller's market due to the lack of inventory. But what we're seeing is a lot of change. And I want to share with you guys today, like I said, exactly how we do it. So we use the Ylopo tools. And we also use some other strategies that I'm going to share with you. So one of the tools we use from Ylopo is the branded market trends. As you can see, if you can see this, it shows over the past year, the median list price in my market, $2.49 million, was what it was a year ago. We're down $1.99 million. So our median list price has dropped tremendously. So I bring this to every listing presentation that I do, and it's the best time to use a tool like this, especially in my market, because this is a reality. So view this. If the market continues like this, and you can see it's not going up, if I price it today, where is it tomorrow? So this is one of the tools that I use for pricing. Now, keep in mind, as I'm sure you guys know better than me, they're going to tell me that such and such just sold for this 2 years ago. 2 years ago on that is a completely different price. So I try to use this as a tool when I walk in, and I encourage you guys to use it for your market. This is available to everybody that uses Ylopo. This is under the tools. Next one is median price per square foot. As you can see, I used to be at over $1,000 a square foot. I'm down to $923. Now, this is just another tool that I use and doesn't mean as much in my market as it may in yours because I'm in more of a luxury market and it kind of changes block to block. But it still shows what I want it to show. And what does it show? Going down. So when I'm trying to grab that listing, I'm trying to emphasize this. Does this mean that they're going to list for a better price? No, not necessarily. Does this mean that I'm not going to take it if it's a little bit overpriced? No, not necessarily. You know why? Because we have a plan to get price reductions along the way. All right, so this slide here, and I just want you guys to know this isn't a listing presentation slide, but I start off price reductions in the listing presentation. So I don't tell them I'm getting a listing price reduction. I tell them I try to future pace on everything that I do. It removes anxiety of them as they're going through the process. And what I mean by future pacing is this. So I tell them, okay, here's what's going to happen next. Here's what's going to happen next. Here's what to expect next. They don't have to listen to me, but they're prepped for it. So whenever I have to have difficult conversations, they know that that difficult conversation may be coming, and it's not the first time that they're hearing it from me. So this slide here is one from my listing presentation. So the way that I actually do listing presentations, and I just started doing this 2 years ago, and I actually found, and I share it with you because it was shared with me, is instead of doing like books or nice things on computers, I do slides. They're literally laminated one at a time, and I walk them through. I just found, and again, I don't mean to make this a listing presentation, but this is where I start. So I hand out the slide, we go through it, we share it, we go over it, it gets passed around if there's multiple people. I found that it just becomes much more interactive, and it works better, and then they get a little bit more feedback, and it's just, I felt the connection as much stronger. So this slide here is from National Association of Realtors. This one here, if you notice, 53% of buyers come from online, goes without saying. 29% is what the real estate agent does, 6% on a sign, 5% relative neighbor, and then we got the builders and everything else. In my listing presentation, I hit what I do on each one of them to accomplish this. So going with the 53% online is going to be my focus today because this isn't a listing presentation, but I want you to see how I leverage some of these tools in Ylopo that are here to give them what they want. So 53% online, coming from a target market, to me, equals a listing rocket. Has anybody used a listing rocket in here? Okay, good. So not only do I want to use the listing rocket, I want to share with them that I use the listing rocket. I want to show them exactly how I use it. I'm in a second home market, so which means this. My buyers don't generally come from the town that I live in. So, for example, the town of Ocean City is 11,000 people, swells to almost 200,000 in the summer. My buyers are not on the island. So I have to know where my buyers come from. So my buyers come from that dotted circle that you see up there. So when I sit down and explain to my clients that how I'm going to market a listing rocket, which I don't use the word listing rocket because they don't understand, but they'll understand, they don't even understand Meta. You have to say Facebook and Instagram. So when I explain to them that I'm going to target this specific market, this is where our buyers come from, they literally grab, and that's right out of my slides, they literally grab that slide and go, oh, wow, that's where I live, or that's where such and such bought this house from. Very powerful, adds credibility, and which is what you want. You want credibility when you sit in front of them using this tool. And I'm going to show you how to get more credibility out of it. So this pin right here is dropped on a listing rocket. Now, how many of you are aware that you can move that pin around when you do a listing rocket? Good. So let me share this with you. For me, for my market, it makes no sense to drop a pin exactly over my market. So I have and I don't know if you've ever called it, but call the marketing strategy unit at Ylopo, touch base with them, run through if you have a sending market that's coming. I send this out, specialized for every town that I do, has a different buyer set that comes from a different area. So then I'll target that specific area on that pin. Now, here's a little trick that I learned talking to the marketing group. So when you're running a Meta ad and you're running one of these listing rockets, you have a 15-mile radius. So what I do is I move that pin out into the ocean. Guess what I only target? The town that I'm marketing for, in this case, Ocean City. So if I was doing Longport, Margate, or Ventnor, I would shift that pin up. So I'm only getting my target market. So if you're in an area where you have open land, water, or a body of water, you can shift these pins. And just so you know, you don't have to drop one pin. You can drop multiple pins. So if you have multiple markets, drop multiple pins. Make sense? Yes or yes? Okay. So you work hard. Everybody works hard, correct, for their clients? You have to share how hard you work, and you have to build some credibility. So here's what I say. If you're doing a listing rocket, send them the link to the listing rocket. Let them look at it so they know that you're following through. We need the credibility and instead of just saying, yeah, we run ads, we do this, take the extra step, send them the link to it. This way here, they can actually see it, they know you're legitimate, and then it makes conversations down the line so much easier. Okay, so this is another one coming from my listing presentation. This shows activity versus weeks. So this is how much activity comes through. This is, again, from National Association of Realtors, but this is also, I tailored this a little bit to my market. So as you can see, it goes up and then comes down. It used to go up and be sold, not no more. So what's happening now is that first 2 weeks, everybody's sitting on the sidelines saying what? Yeah, let's see what happens. Yeah, that one didn't sell yet. That is still there. Oh my God, do you believe that one didn't sell? And then you see activity picking up. So again, this is tailored to your market. This is what we're seeing in our market. So we're seeing week 3, week 4, high activity because everybody was sitting on the sideline waiting. So when we're having price improvement conversations, we always want to refer back to this. We always want to refer back to this. This is one of the things we want to refer back to. Very, very important. So here's the breakdown of it. I made it a little bit bigger for you. So it's activity versus weeks on market. As you can see, again, by week 2, we're peaked. And then it's downhill from there. So basically, by the time week 3 comes, week 4 comes, you've got to start prepping for the conversations, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. All right, here's another slide that comes from my presentation. So this is, again, out of my listing presentation. So this is a weekly update. So as you can imagine, we as realtors sometimes forget to do weekly updates, whether it's a phone call, whether it's an email, whether it's anything. And then when that happens, what do you think the feedback is if it ends up being an expired? My agent didn't do anything. My agent sucked. Well, you know what? You have to share how hard you work. So we have a communication policy on our team that once a week on Tuesday, you're getting an email from us of saying everything we did. I'm going to share with you guys what the email is and how important it is to future pace for that price reduction. All right, so here's exactly where the magic happens. So we've got the listing, and this is our first email update that goes out. And it says, "Hello, Joe. I wanted to take a minute and bring you up to speed on what we have accomplished since launching your listing to the world. Here is a checklist of what has already been completed. We do a poor job of sharing how hard we work and what we do. But guess what happens? When the house doesn't sell, if we didn't share it, they say what? We didn't do anything. My agent didn't do anything. Our group calls expired listings. What do you think we hear? Our last agent sucked. Our last agent sucked. I don't want you guys to be getting your expireds called. When in our market, we went from 2 a month to over, and it's in the hundreds now. So we're seeing a shift. That means we're having trouble having these conversations. So these are long emails, but this is just going to be some snidbits out of our accomplishments, what we've completed. I start the email right underneath that opening. This is what I start with is our accomplishments. And I'll just read a few of them off to you guys, and I'm going to, listen, just so you guys know, I'm going to share with you guys the email. If you're in FUB, you're going to get this. It's shared. If for some reason, I told Tiffany, if for some reason I forget to tell you guys what it's named, I will at the end. And this way here, it's there. You don't have to take pictures or anything else. I'm already sharing this with you. So first one is, and these things sound simplistic, but you have to share what your value is, what you do. So professionally written property description was drafted and approved. Professional videographer obtained footage for marketing. YouTube custom video tour was filmed and sent out for editing. So there's just a whole list that goes through. If it doesn't apply, you just delete it. So in other words, it's a long list, you delete it if it doesn't apply. So you're adding value and saying what you did the entire way. So our group does a launch on Wednesday or Thursday, open house on what day would it be? Saturday is our open house. That's the first time we let anybody get in there because we're trying to actually sell this thing. And that goes out Tuesday. So that gives us the data from there. It lets them know what we've done, and I can give them immediately feedback. So we have a program that we run that goes through. So here's some more. Properties submitted to local MLS for publication. These are simple. You guys all do these. Let them know how hard you work. Let them know how hard you work. Okay, custom dedicated property landing page was designed and completed for marketing. That's a listing rocket. just so you guys know. That's a listing rocket. And I'm gonna walk backwards really quick. So during the listing presentation, when I'm explaining the concept of a listing rocket, I share with them that we run them ads, but one of the things that we do is we run a dedicated landing page, which grabs the information of that potential buyer. We then reach out to that buyer to see if they're interested. Understand this, that may or may not sell your home, but I can tell you this, we've been running these ads for years. So guess what? We also go into our database and immediately market to the ones who inquired with a similar property. You're just adding value and adding value and adding value. And you want to prove your value. Okay, so this is, there's a red line on the arrow so you can see. So it provided you with pictures to post on social media for additional exposure. Some people want it, some people don't. So I would delete that out there if it's not. So you just go through and delete it. That's the quickest way. All right, so now we know what we've accomplished. Next, underneath, in the same email, stats. This is week 1. This is Tuesday of week 1, stats. So we already know that the first 4 weeks are crucial to gauging how the market reacts to new listings. So open houses. If you didn't do an open house, that whole thing gets deleted. You don't put zeros, you don't leave it. Just delete it. It makes sense? The last thing you want up there is 0, and the first thing they go is, never did an open house. So delete it. Days on market, easily. I use Zillow in our market as a gauge, and just to let you know how many likes, how much favorability, I use that as a stat, right? So these are all critical to adding up. How many showings, the feedback, so I give the overall feedback. I give the positive and the negative. Everybody understand that? You can't just, like if you're going for price reduction, you can't just give the negative, you gotta give the positive and the negative. The meta ads, which would be how many views, how many watched, how many likes, which you get back from the listing rocket. And if you're not getting the update, just send an email to the marketing group, they'll send that to you. Designated landing page, which obviously was how many people actually clicked and gave you your information. Okay, give them all that. So at the bottom, now this is the bottom of the email, is potential interest and offers. Again, this is where we provide the positive, negative feedback so everybody understands. Now, our recommendations isn't based on what I think. It's based off of what? What the market is telling us, right? It's not what I think. It's not what Mike Sutley says or Mike Sutley thinks or anything else. It's not about me. It's about what the market is telling us. So we focus heavily on those stats because the stats are what? The stats are the market, right? So for week 1, we know immediately if our barometer of pricing is correct. I should know that weekend based on the amount of calls I get, showings, everything else, roughly if we're in the ballpark. Almost no matter what, unless we need a price increase or I'm just completely wrong on the pricing, I always put stay the course is what I would put for recommendations. Stay the course. So now, week 2 on Tuesday, and every Tuesday beyond is this same email. So this same email template is used the rest of the way through. So here's how it works. So hello, Joe. Hope you're doing well. Here's an update regarding your property along with the feedback we have received. Now, I changed the format. Instead of putting the accomplishments at the top, right, the accomplishments, as you can see, are going to go to the bottom. I immediately start off with days on market, because that's really what we're monitoring, is how long we're on the market, because we know in our market how long certain things should be on there. So we want that at the top, and I put the MLS average days on market in that specific town. If it's condos, for condos. If it's singles, it's for singles, so we can compare it, right? Because I want to compare apples to apples. It's much easier to have an intelligent conversation when you have the data to support it and you've been future pacing them all the way from the listing. All right, and then naturally we hit the MLS and Zillow. And so we hit showings, any open houses we did. Again, if you didn't do any open houses, what do? Delete it. And I add this new one into here is competition. So I want to let them know what else has hit the market in their price point that they're competing against. And here's a trick. This is actually a really good trick. So as soon as we get a listing, I immediately delete their alerts or anything else. I then set myself up on a seller alert. I geofence that specific area of whatever I'm targeting. So every time a listing comes out or pops up or goes under contract or there's a price reduction or anything, I get notified. I then have a reason to call them and say, hey, just want to give you a heads up, such and such came on the market or this one. It looks like I'm 100% on top of my game related to them, because what do they care about? They care about themselves, and you should care about them. So that's a cheat that I use that works really well to help me serve them. So I would recommend that. It's a really good cheat to use. And then obviously the meta ads that come. So new potential interest and offers. So this is where now I start to get really in depth. So if I have anybody that's interested or anything going on, I share that in here. I share it. If our recommendation, typically by week 2, we really generally don't have much of a recommendation, but as the weeks continue, your recommendations are going to be based off of the market and can get very in detailed. So some people hate reading emails. So when you talk to your client and say, hey, we don't really check our emails, here's my recommendation. You're going to tell them that on Tuesdays you send it out. When I send it to you, I'm going to send you a text message and just let you know it's sent, just so you can check your inbox. It's really important for you to stay on top of the market and what's going on with your home. It's very important for us to serve you at the highest level. Very important. So understand, like, not everybody opens emails. Have that conversation. Now, going back to the listing presentation, all the way back in the listing presentation, future pace. So I basically say, hey, listen, and I'm out of time, so I'm speeding up as much as I can here. So I say this in the listing presentation. When we have to have a conversation, because most people are like, I prefer to text, I prefer to do this. No. Listen, when we have to sit down and have a conversation about your property, whether it's an offer or anything coming in, will you be available to have that conversation? Everybody's going to say yes. So when you're now calling, and that was the accomplishments at the bottom. So all you're doing is the accomplishments from the first one. You copy that out, drop it in the second, and add anything to it. All right, ready? Scripting framework for price improvements. So naturally, the day comes, you're going to have this price improvement conversation. Here's a basic framework, and this isn't word for word, but this is a basic framework, and it's going to go, hi, Joe, thanks for taking my call. I wanted to confirm you are still receiving the weekly updates. As you know, you can see in the checkbox if they're opening it, right? If we go in the email, we know I still ask no matter what. I always ask no matter what, because it would seem weird if they knew I was opening it. So, and then I work in a phase 2. I wanted to take a moment and talk to you about what we're seeing in the market and what it means to you, because it's not about me, it's about them. And then I just wanted to remind you that I work for you. I work for you. And I want to give you the best advice that I can. I know your motivation, whatever the motivation is whatever. Now, here's the ask. Two types of people. People pleaser, I say people pleaser artsy, business analytical. Most of my clients are, what do you think? Business analytical. But when I have people pleasers, I'd say, hey, Joe, based on everything that we're seeing in the market, the feedback we had received, and your motivation of whatever the motivation is, I know what I would do if I was in your shoes right now. I would improve the price to blank. I'm not telling them to do it. So it's a softer approach to a person that doesn't like directness. So it's just a softer approach. So it's what I would do if I was in your shoes. It's a soft approach. Then here's the key. Shut up and listen. Don't keep talking. Awkward silence. Wait. Listen for the feedback. Okay. Business analytical, same exact start. Know the motivation. And it's going to be, we need to improve the price to blank. And then guess what? Shut up and listen. Listen to the feedback that you get. Okay, so they say no. Fantastic. What did you just do? I'll tell you what you did. You know their motivation. You know what they're thinking about price. You know what they're thinking about everything else. And I have clients sometimes that will go way lower, will never let me know. They'll say to me, Mike, I will never budge. Guess what happens? They'll budge on the offer, never on a price reduction. but they'll never let me know. And I mean never let me know. So here's what we're doing. We obtained the direct feedback from them. We know now where they stand. And sometimes, just keep in mind, that may be a lie. Prime example. We developed a solid foundation to ask for another price improvement down the line. But more than anything, we set an expectation for a lower offer when it comes in. You guys understand that? So if a low offer comes in, we've now set the expectation by future pacing all the way through for that lower offer. So even though they said no, it's okay. You've set the foundation to say, look, it came in at such and such. So they now expect it. Very important to future pace. Last thing I do is when it's on the market for a while, I reach out to every agent that showed it and say, hey, listen, what do we got to do to put something together? Give me an offer. You know what I mean? And even if it's a low offer, I want to submit it because then it sets expectations. So very important. Again, I didn't share anything about me, but I say this because I get asked this all the time. Like, Mike, how do you get into the luxury market? And it's really simple. Just go to it. I grew up in the middle class. I didn't have much. Like, at times in my life, I didn't have heat in the house, and I went on, as crazy as it sounds, to be a cop, and I always wanted to be a homicide detective. So I chose the poorest, most violent city in the entire country, Camden, to become a homicide detective. I left that, and I do this now. And everybody said to me, and just so you know, I retired. Everybody said to me, Mike, you cannot go and work in a luxury market. I said, okay. So I say this. Everybody around you says you can't do it. You're in the wrong room. When you're in a room like this, you're in the right room. This is the right room. Talk to the people next to you. Talk to the people around you. I promise you this. You're in the right room. You're in the right group with Ylopo. You're in the right room with Follow Up Boss. It's made a difference in my life. And if there's anything I can ever do for you guys in South Jersey, like I said, please don't hesitate. I promise you this. You're in the right room. God bless. Thank you.